This is Reverend Judy Copeland, pastor of the Hancock Congregational Church in Hancock, New Hampshire, wishing you a happy Mother's Day. I have surrounded myself this morning with photos of some of the mothers and grandmothers and even a great-grandmother from my family, remembering with gratitude those who have gone before me. We are going to talk a little about the history of Mother's Day this morning because I think it offers us an example, actually a dual track of two different examples of how faith can inspire one to act for the good. There are two women who are generally thought of as having provided the inspiration for the American expression of Mother's Day. And the first is Julia Ward Howe. We perhaps know her best as the author of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, that rollicking anthem we often sing on patriotic occasions, a hymn that links Old Testament-style judgment of the wicked with the American Civil War. Howe was married, rather unhappily, according to a recent biography, to one of the founders of the Perkins School for the Blind. Despite his own ardent abolitionist views, Samuel Howe was opposed to his wife's participation in the public discussion. Nevertheless, she prevailed, and like other 19th century women who witnessed the carnage of the Civil War, Julia Ward Howe became a spokeswoman for peace. Last week, we were looking in a general way at the Beatitudes in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And of course, one of the blessings Jesus offers focuses on the subject of peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Or in some translations, blessed are those who work for peace. Julia Ward Howe was someone who certainly threw her energy into working for peace. When the Franco-Prussian War started to gear up in Europe less than a decade after the conclusion of our own Civil War, Howe issued her famous Mother's Day proclamation, writing in 1870 with the same feistiness she had employed in her earlier battle hymn. Arise then, women of this day, arise all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. Although she never achieved the General Congress, the great worldwide gathering of women she longed for, Julia Ward Howe did succeed in establishing the first Mother's Day celebrations in the United States. For more than 30 years, Mother's Day was celebrated in select cities, not on the second Sunday in May, but on June 2nd, and it was known not simply as Mother's Day, but as the Mother's Day for Peace. For the generation of women who had seen such bloodshed, the generation of women who had done much of the nursing in the Civil War, in Civil War hospitals, the generation of women who had buried so many husbands and fathers and sons, it is not surprising that their most ardent wish was for peace, a peace that Howe, in her soaring oratory, identified as the sacred impress of God. So on one hand, you have a woman claiming the international stage, bringing a social activism born of her faith and her Sermon on the Mount call to duty as a peacemaker, as one strand of inspiration for Mother's Day. However, there was another American woman or another woman's daughter who also had her designs on Mother's Day. Anna Reeves Jarvis, the woman who inspired her daughter's almost obsessive advocacy for a nationally recognized Mother's Day, was by all accounts a quietly noble woman. She knew personal tragedy firsthand, although she bore 11 children, and some accounts say it may have been as many as 13. Only 4 of them survived into adulthood. The rest succumbed to measles, typhoid fever, and diphtheria, epidemics of which were common in the Appalachian communities of West Virginia where she lived. Jarvis was inspired to take action, and she started something she called Mother's Day work clubs to help her community combat childhood diseases and also unsanitary conditions. These clubs raised money to buy medicine and to hire women to work in families where the mothers suffered from tuberculosis. They developed programs to inspect milk long before there were state inspections and requirements. Club members visited households to educate families, mothers, and their children, and sometimes even fathers, about improving sanitation and overall health. And in one of the nation's earliest public health campaigns, Anna Jarvis worked to make sure that even the poorest members of her community had access to fresh water. She was active in her church and taught Bible studies on the great women of the Bible. She was a kind and purposeful woman, someone easy to idolize, and her daughter, also named Anna, did just that. Daughter Anna had left the Appalachian Hills and had moved to Philadelphia, where she worked as a stenographer. She was devastated, just utterly devastated, when her mother died on the second Sunday in May in 1905. And shortly thereafter, she began a campaign to create a day of remembrance for mothers. She envisioned it as a quietly, deeply personal family day, a day when families might return home and worship in their mothers' churches, a day when they might decorate the altars of those churches with their mother's favorite flowers, just as she had, sending some 500 of her mother's beloved white carnations to the little church her mother had attended in Grafton, West Virginia. Daughter Anna believed that the entire nation would benefit from such a day, and she began a letter writing campaign to gain official recognition for her version of Mother's Day, enlisting the political clout of John Wanamaker, the Philadelphia department store magnate. Now, Wanamaker was eager to get on board. He eventually would be the one to take the bill to Congress, but he saw the holiday through merchants' eyes. And while Anna Jarvis and John Wanamaker may have been on the same page when the holiday was officially recognized by Woodrow Wilson in 1914, they did not stay there for long. When the holiday quickly became a commercial bonanza, Anna Jarvis went, let's say, a little berserk. It is said that she went into the tea room at in Wanamaker's department store. You know how they had those beautiful department store tea rooms? And she went in there in early May one year, and she saw that there was something called or advertised as a Mother's Day salad on the menu. And so she ordered it, she paid for it, and she promptly dumped it on the floor. She scorned the boxes of chocolates that were sold and the Mother's Day cards that came into print, expounding a maudlin, insincere printed card or ready-made telegram means nothing except that you are too lazy to write to the woman who has done more for you than anyone else in the world. Any mother would rather have a line of the worst scribble from her son or daughter than a fancy greeting card. In 1934, she even set her sights on the United States Postal Service when it issued a Mother's Day stamp, a 3-cent stamp using the famous, or an image of the famous painting by Whistler's mother. But the post office had added, and this is what made her so mad, a bouquet of flowers in the bottom left-hand corner of the image. And Anna Jarvis saw that as a commercial for the florist industry, Things did not end well for Anna Jarvis the younger. She grew more and more cantankerous, then bitter, and in the end was confined to a sanatorium. She died penniless, having spent all of her money mounting various lawsuits, trying to protect the sacred honor of Mother's Day from its inevitable commercialization. And while it's easy to focus on the daughter's eccentricities, let's not forget the woman who inspired her. The thing I love about the original Anna Jarvis was the way that her faith inspired her to work at the local level and as a bridge for reconciliation. I mentioned her public health work, but perhaps even more impressive was the position she took during the Civil War. The place she lived in West Virginia was right on the bubble between North and South. You may remember that West Virginia was only carved out of the great state of Virginia, or Commonwealth of Virginia, as war came on, with West Virginia siding with the Union. But it was a place where feelings ran high and loyalties ran in both directions. And it was Anna Jarvis who rallied the women in her town to come out and to tend to wounded soldiers, convincing them to care for both Confederate and Union wounded alike. Her efforts to keep the community together continued even after the Civil War ended. She and her Mother's Day work club members planned a Mother's Friendship Day for soldiers from both sides and their families at the Taylor County Courthouse to help initiate the healing process. Despite threats of violence, Anna Jarvis shared a message of unity and reconciliation. Bands played both Dixie and the Star-Spangled Banner, and the event ended with everyone, North and South, Confederate and Union, joining together to sing Auld Lang Syne. It was an effective and emotional event that reduced many to tears and showed the community that the old animosities were destructive and needed to come to an end. On this day, when we honor our own mothers, and in a more general sense, the influence that all women have had on society, we would do well, I think, to remember these two Civil War era women, early leaders in the Mother's Day movement, one associated with a great public cause, Julia Ward Howe, and her public campaign for world peace. The other doing good work in her own community, Anna Jarvis finding admirable ways to serve others and do the work of reconciliation right on her very own doorstep. And perhaps that's the way we best honor our mothers. Now, not forgetting the flowers and the phone calls and the visits, because we like those too, but by honoring them with good works paid forward, so that, to quote Jesus' words from the Gospel of John, "The love with which you have loved me, may it be in them also." We honor our mothers and our mothers' memories best by the good we bring into the world, the love that we generate and leave in our wake. In the Middle Ages, there was a German scholastic and mystic known as Meister Eckhart, who taught that we are all meant to be mothers of God, for Christ is constantly needing to be born. Goodness knows there is still not enough of Christ's love in this world, but it's our job to bring it into being, to be midwives to that love divine, all loves excelling. Happy Mother's Day.